Ready?
Yeah, whenever you're good, then.
Welcome back, everybody, to the show. You know me by now. I am Tomcat, aka Tom Thompson. And who am I joined by? I'm fucking hungover.
Thomas hungover and tired. We're recording. Probably not at the best time for him on a Sunday morning. um, is that alcohol?
Yes.
Jesus
Why
Christ.
not, man? It's a long weekend, and what's that call where you have to like drink after you're like to?
Um.
There's a word for it
Oh shit.
because of withdrawals, so you like have to kind of
Yeah.
do it. Okay,
Um.
morning. No, I can't remember it. No, but yes, I.
Hair of the dog.
Oh, hair of the dog. That's it. Yes, that is the saying. The wife went to this brewery, and salty stinger. It's a peach goes is what it's called. The other ones are really good. Like I'm used to IPAs, especially for flavored type beers, and it was fairly good. Like this is my last hurrah. Eventually, when we do have a kid, like I'm gonna probably really stop drinking for a long time. I'll just eat edibles and stuff. But
You're gonna give up alcohol altogether.
for a bit, maybe not altogether,
Yeah,
but
like a week, 2 weeks.
yeah. At some point, though, I hope to like keep it. I've always kept it at bay, but I think that I should. But everybody, welcome back to the show. Yes, I was day drinking yesterday. And also something not healthy for you, but her dad gave us a deep fryer, like just a little. It's like it's called
Yeah.
a fry poppy. I think that's literally what it's
Weird.
called. Yeah, poppy, and it's like this is this bucket, and you fill up with oil. Works really well. So we put chicken fingers in that shit, toss them in
I can
buffalo
imagine they were
sauce.
so nice.
It was so good. And then we made nachos with them. It was pretty bomb. Because when we're recording this will come out in a couple weeks after, but it's Canada Day weekend, so I'm just to try and enjoy myself. It is chilly though. Like I was gonna go swimming and maybe do a movie outside. And we're gonna to prep and get ready for a deep dive we're doing. I was gonna watch one of the movies in 3D, but it's like chilly and shitty out. So I'm like, guess this is another day to get buzzed. Oh, we're gonna go see The Quiet Place though.
Today.
I think that's a plan.
Nice.
Have you seen it yet?
No, I haven't actually. I am going to see it in a couple of days, though. I seen The Exorcism
Is
with
that good? Why is
Russell
why
Crowe.
is Russell Crowe in it again?
I
Like
don't know,
nothing
and
to do with the Pope's
yeah,
exorcist and shit.
it's weird. It's fucking terrible.
Why do they keep trying to push this exorcism shit? It's so
I don't know,
garbage,
but
man.
I'm gonna go out on a kind of a little bit of a limb here and say it is it is the worst movie I've seen in the last like 4 or 5 years.
And there's a lot of bad movies that have came out
Yeah,
because Hollywood is garbage.
and I like a lot of bad movies, but this is the worst movie I've seen in the last 5 years. Easy, hands
And
down.
we ran on a little bit and have a little fun. Talking in the beginning of episodes. Obviously, welcome. We're back with another true crime episode. But it is crazy because there's like a lot of movies that are just pure garbage. But I think for even Class Forecast, it'd be fun to do an episode like movies that we hate or something like that, and just throw in the trash
Yeah,
just a bunch
yeah,
of movies because we have a bunch of stuff coming for Class Forecast, and it gives us, especially me, a break. Even I said that to the wife where I'm like, Class Forecast is a way where I can dive into stuff and watch cool stuff, write down notes, and it's not based on how certain people control the world, It's like, and it's the deep rabbit hole that I go into, you know.
also it's like some weird like snake charmer music.
No, it's Hava Nahava Gila or whatever.
Weird that I don't know why, but that reminds me instantly of remember that song from fucking the Adams Family, that Babushka one,
Oh yeah,
where him and
yeah.
Fester do that whole dance.
What we know? That's what we have to do this summer.
Do you know, dude? I
We were going to
found
do that commentary.
yeah,
Oh, we need to
I
do
found
that.
my notes for that today while I was pulling out my John Lang stuff that
Oh, it's
I
so
that
funny.
I've had done since March 31st.
Yeah,
I
Aaron's been
found my
wanting to
Adam.
dive into this episode for a long time, and I didn't know anything about this. I've only watched a 10-minute video on YouTube, and it still was like pretty mind blowing that this kind of stuff took place. And yeah, I don't. This is another reason why you should probably hate cops because they're not good people. I think all the cops that even the good ones are gone. Like I'm a majority of the cops, especially during the COVID stuff, that didn't want to take the medicine time thing, have all like quit, and they just want boot kissers that for law enforcement essentially, and that's what they're doing. You know.
Yeah, and this is like one of those cases. I don't know which side I'm on. Maybe we'll have decided by the end of the episode.
Yeah,
As
and for
will the
everyone that's like, well,
listeners.
my dad's a cop, and my uncle, like, they're not standing up to anything. They're just an authoritarian boot for the state, in my opinion. Like they're what something that Jeremy McKenzie brings up a lot. He talks about how there was cops that people like interviewed, people or they're out on a protest, and he's like, oh, this kid's like with a cop, and he's like, yeah, I bet you were one of the cops that like beat down the protesters during the freedom convoy, beat your own citizens, trampled them with horses, and he's like, well, I paid for my pool. And that's absurd. That's the people that we have in an authoritarian role, an authority role in Canada. Is people like, yeah, I pay for my pool. There's a special place in hell for the RCMP, for a lot of the police. There is, for sure. Oh, I paid for my pool. Like, that's crazy that you're going to say that shit to somebody, when people were hurt and they're still trampling people. And where was that? Nova Scotia? I think there's a protest, and they sent Stompy the horse out, and it broke some guy's ribs. Crazy.
Pretty
I don't like
cool.
cops. Yeah.
Well, you're definitely not going to like these guys then. So for people who don't know,
Yes, it's
John
interesting.
Lang was, because we are talking about him in the past tense now, was an individual who claimed to be a victim of gang stalking. This is a phenomenon known where an individual is targeted by a group of people who engage in harassment, surveillance, and other forms of intimidation. Lang's
Which could be
case,
an episode.
yeah,
Gang stalking is a real
yeah.
weird thing.
I never heard of it before I seen this case.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I commented on, on the video on TikTok, and it was talking about the Rebel News. I'm not a fan of Rebel News either, especially because you know that's my sound now. Who they're owned by, just so we don't need to say it anymore. But they were driving around with this truck that had like all these. It's like it has TVs on it or whatever, right? And it was showing how like the Muslims have invaded and that this is Canada and there's all these people praying or whatever, and to Mecca. And then I commented, I was like, go back to your own country. And then somebody's like, I was like, good luck with the Civil War coming or whatever. And someone's like, oh, you better not be careful of the Civil War. You should be careful about doxing and stuff like that. And I'm like, come find me, man. Like, I'm not scared. You're going to start doxing me, which for people that don't know, it's people that try to find out like where you live and they harass you. I'm not afraid of that. There's ways that I'll just put you in prison if you want to play that game. But there's people that the same kind of idea as gang stalking, of people harassing you and going out of their way to do that. And I'm like, that's your loving religion, that's your loving religion where Muhammad is a pedophile sleeping, marrying a 6-year-old. Just had to have that say that because it's the people are like,
Just
I'm gonna
had to get
dox
that in
you.
there.
What?
You just had to get that in there.
Well, the people that think that
Um,
that's okay is like, going out of their way to like harass people. You got nothing else to do, man? Really?
Lang's case gained attention due to his extensive documentation of the alleged harassment he experienced. Local activists and whistleblower in the Fresno area, who many believe was a target for a notoriously corrupt Fresno police department, while others believe he may have suffered from severe paranoia and delusions. However, if we follow the apparent facts of this case, it is hard not to feel like there was much more at play here.
It is
I
weird.
definitely, yeah, it's a weird case, man.
This is quite bizarre for everybody, and Aaron has been fascinated by this for a long time, and I was like, you cover it. Let's do it this way. Where usually I'm the one that does all the research. You'll watch some stuff. So I was like, let's switch roles. Let's role reverse, and you can kind of be the lead on this because you find it so fascinating. And even watching, like, I was like eating in my car or whatever at lunch at work, and I was watching this stuff, and I was like, it is pretty crazy that this happened. It is a bizarre case. It is such a weird thing that happened to this man, and it shows that I think that shows that cops are capable of planting evidence and doing really shady stuff and maybe even murdering people. You
Yeah,
know?
there's too many strange things that happen in this case I don't know, like, I mean, I guess, yeah, there's probably an argument where maybe he was paranoid and stuff like that, but there's a lot of other things that we'll see happened outside of his control
Yeah, yeah.
that are just a bit too coincidental. Like, it's a bit strange that I understand when someone is suffering from like severe paranoia or mental illness or delusions, that you will kind of create the world around you and people will, convince themselves of certain things or whatever. But like, there's some things that happen here that like he has no part to play in. And I don't know, it all connects together a bit too well for
Who?
it to just
When
be.
did you? When did you discover this?
I actually think it was like randomly on like Reddit or somewhere. And
Weird.
I think I looked up like something like most bizarre like unknown cases or something like that. And this was one that popped up, and people were fascinated by it because he basically, outside of his YouTube and like a couple of accounts on like different forums, he has no social media footprint whatsoever. They still haven't found a photograph that they've proven 100% is him,
Yeah, that
which is
weird
another like,
anonymous photograph that he has.
yeah, which is another like kind of strange thing. And then I suppose all this shit that's happened since all this.
He's like a
Um
psyop. He didn't even exist. You know.
yeah, like we'll get into it a little bit now. So he's known to have frequented a site known as the Fresno Bee, which was a community blog of sorts. He was adamant that the police department were targeting low income communities by scanning license plates in supermarket car parks and then waiting nearby to pull these people over as soon as they returned to their cars. John felt that they were making millions of dollars per year as a result of this. So this is kind of where I guess his whole thing started. And some people reckon that stuff like this is why he ended up being targeted in the end. So he also believed that a Fresno Bee employee by the name of Jody Murray was scanning the site for posts that painted the police department in a negative light and sending them to an account called Hiker Dude 67 or Hiker Dude 1967. He believed this to be an online alias for Sheriff Sergeant McCormick. John alleged John alleged that the IP addresses of anyone who was critical of the police were sent to this officer in specific. Now, again, right, I don't know where. It's very hard to find out like where he was sourcing this information,
Yeah, weird
or if he
hiker
was just
dude.
like, yeah, or if he was just like making this shit up in his head. I actually don't know, and like
Sounds
I've
like a
tried.
guy that's like, hey, can you meet me in the forest at 10 p.m.? I am looking to suck a dick. You know,
Yeah,
like
it's very like, no. To be fair, right, if they were going, if the police were going to have like
what's
a
it called?
fake
Cruising.
account or whatever, yeah, they're going to make it something fucking completely bizarre.
Yeah, and the thing is too, if they're a threat, if someone is a threat to the establishment or a police force, think about this, right? Like one of the lines I like from an Ill Bill song is, "The biggest gang in the world is the police. Our tax dollars pay for no justice and no peace." And realistically, if you look at it from the outside, they are like a gang for the
Yeah.
state.
Yep. Yep.
They have uniforms, and the thing is too, it's interesting, right? Like if people are like, if people, well, that's not nothing to do with me. I'm not a bad guy. I just want to do my job and protect people. It's very rare that that is the case when it comes to police. And the thing is, if especially within Canada and stuff like that, it's supposed to be a uniform. You're supposed to be one thing. So if the cops do something bad, you should acknowledge that they're doing something bad. If you are a cop, because you're supposed to be one unified thing,
Yeah, we
right?
see there's the problem, right? Excuse me. Even if I'm a cop or whatever and I consider myself like a good cop and I just want to do the job the way I see is the right way,
Yeah.
on a whole, like, or whatever, or if like your superiors or whatever tell you, well, you've got it, like here, for example, I'm sure there's a lot of police in Ireland who are just guys who took the job and maybe thought they were going to make a difference, and now we see that the police here are protecting English
Criminals.
companies,
Yeah.
English
Yeah.
contractors that are coming into Irish territory and renovating land to put migrants in,
Yeah.
and
It's crazy.
they're clashing with the locals. So now, like, even if you're just some dude who got a job as a police officer, now you're having to like beat the shit out of the local community to let English contractors build houses for illegal immigrants.
I know, which is crazy. I saw some of that stuff too, and they're doing that in the United States. I'm sure within Canada, like they want to bring in, they want to have the population of Canada by I think 2050 to 100 million. We're at 42, like one or two, 42 right now, and it's been growing exponentially. And no one can be. There's no housing for anybody. It's so weird that like there's so many people that are poor and broke, but they'll give everything to somebody else.
It's very
60,
bizarre.
65% of the people that are impoverished in Canada are white people. There is a threat to to your skin color. Everybody, if you don't notice, it's called the Kalergi Plan. It's all in the works, but it is crazy because then you're working for an authoritarian boot of the state. Like I said, like that's not you're not protecting like protect and serve. You're not doing any of that. You're like get on your knees and suck the government dick, guy.
Basically. Another strange story actually that John Lang told was in May 2014, he received some answers to a Craigslist ad that he placed to sell a jet ski. Three separate people showed up for the ad. One, he said, had all the mannerisms of a police officer. Now, I mean,
Yeah.
to me, that's neither here nor there. That could be,
It's like the guy. It's like you got that that weed that
yeah,
that weed, right? You got some weed, and it's like, are you a cop, man? You sure seem like a
so it's
cop.
like some people are just a bit like
And
that.
this
So,
guy
like,
didn't have a wife. There's no like he had no family. Like it's so bizarre because we don't know what he looks like. There's no
yeah,
like
that's
record.
that's the strange part that like people haven't seemed to be able to dig up too much about him.
Like no
Um,
family, no aunts and uncles, no
Here's
parents.
another strange part to that story about the jet ski. So the second person that shows up to view the jet ski from the Craigslist ad was Jody Murray, which is the Fresno B employee that he said was helping the police department find out who was like posting shit online about them.
Of
But
course.
at the time, he didn't know that it
Yeah.
was them, if you know what I mean. It was only afterwards when he seen a photograph, he was like, "Wait a second, that was that motherfucker that showed up to look at my jet ski." Just seems like a weird coincidence. Why randomly would he be like checking out his jet ski? Um, and then again, another like useless piece of information. The last person was a heavy set man who was riding a newish motorcycle. I don't know what that has to do with anything.
And this is his writings, or did somebody else gather that this happened?
Yeah, no, this is all like stuff that he posted in like captions on his YouTube channel and stuff.
So weird.
Um, upon looking under the surface, it was discovered the Fresno Bee worked with a third party company called Discus to filter and moderate the comments, etc. They could access all user IPs, so technically, John may have been right all along.
Well, they're obviously doing that, right? Like, and the thing is, like, I use VPNs and stuff like that, but I don't use them on my computer. So the government's like, this guy's really trying to dig and look into stuff about Jewish people. It's like, you know what
It's
I
just
mean? Like,
weirdo.
so it is interesting because they definitely like try. I don't know, who knows if it's in some big I just picture like all those like computer where like it's a warehouse and it's just all those like computer those big
Those like
stacks.
servers or whatever.
Yeah, the big servers or whatever, and it's just like collecting everyone's information, and it's crazy because they know everything about then who you would vote for. They know what you probably think about on a daily basis, and all that stuff. That's why I'm kind of like out in the open, where I'm like, this is what I think. Here's a video. I don't care. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, I do not like what is going on in the world. So and it's just fine to kind of like be out there. Where Shane said that once from Inquiries of Reality, where he's like, it's kind of. I was like, it's probably too late for me. They're like, I've had my videos shared thousands of times. He's like, that's kind of a good thing though, kind of realistically, because you're already out there, and if something did say happen to you in any way, there is kind of there's proof, like you're active, right? So
Yeah,
as soon
there's
as
like a
you start,
social footprint there.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
That's what
Which
some
with
people
this
said,
guy is like,
that this guy's misstep was the fact that all the videos that he posted on his YouTube and stuff, the commentary that he gave to them was in the description. He doesn't talk over
yeah.
the video or anything, and people were like, "That was definitely a big misstep. He should have put his face on camera. He should have let people hear his voice because that's kind of why this story has been maybe left a little bit in the
And
shadows
it
because
is
we
his
don't know
YouTube
anything."
channel still up?
Yeah, we'll take a look at that now shortly. His channel is still there. And like all the videos are like CCTV from outside of his house
Yeah.
of different things.
So how did he
And
get the access to that? Did he put a camera in?
Yeah, he had cameras all over the house, and then he would come back every day
So
and like review
I
the
don't like
footage.
that Big Brother type thing, but it's not a bad idea because you see weird things on those those Ring cameras now or whatever that they have in people's houses. There's weird stuff, or there's like really nice boys that are just like ding dong. I just want to say that I love your dog or something. You know what I mean? You've seen some of those videos. It's like the
Yeah,
nicest that
like we
fat
have
boy. That is,
in
you
my
know,
house, we have one, two, three, four.
really.
Yeah, we have like 6 or 7
But you're
cameras
like
on the house.
close. You're like you're in. I'm assuming that you're in this a big neighborhood where it's just a bunch of
Yeah, like
houses all
it's
collectivized
like an
together.
estate. Like we're on a block of like say 12 houses.
Yeah, because I've seen how Ireland looks. You guys really tried to fit everything in there, and
Yeah,
that's why it's like they're
miserable.
trying to fit more people. They can't. It's
Miserable.
not possible.
No, because they're just throwing us out of these houses now,
Yeah,
and then they're going to put immigrants in them.
the clergy plan.
Okay, so from this point, after hearing about this like third party company that they were working with, John was convinced that his phones had been bugged and his car was being tracked due to an apparent increase in police presence everywhere he went. In 2015, he filed a harassment complaint with the Internal Affairs Department of the Fresno PD, but he went on to say he felt that it only made things more intense overall.
Well, it is weird because he's essentially one guy, right? Trying to expose their corruption. Because isn't this something to do with that? Or we're gonna get because there's something to do with their corruption of what he was trying to expose, right?
Yeah, well, the whole thing started off with, like he said, he reckoned that he had uncovered this license plate scam
Yeah,
that
yeah.
he thought the police were taking part in, which was,
Racketeering.
yeah, they would basically scan the license plates of parked cars and then they would wait for the person to get back in the car and then pull them out and like, ticket them, arrest them. And he reckoned that they were making millions of dollars a year. And like, it
It
was
is
this whole
crazy.
big conspiracy.
Imagine the stuff that does happen, right? That we're not even aware of, or the stuff that happened, took place during the pandemic, where all these people made a ton of money. Like our the premier for Ontario, Doug Ford. He's supposed to be conservative, but he's definitely a leftist communist, in my opinion. And he made a ton of money off of decals of like the stickers on the ground. They were like, "Go this way." You know what I mean? Walk,
Mm,
which is so
yeah.
crazy that we participate in any of that shit. I'll never forget that where I got called a scumbag for going the wrong way. And I was gonna like fucking knock the head off this guy. I was like, "You need to go to the car," and it's just crazy for just stickers on like the things that we participated in. Remember, never to do that again, people, because we're trying to push the bird flu now. But it's just he made tons of money. And the same thing with our upcoming conservative leader, PP. He took a lot of his wife had a lot of money in the PCR tests, and it's like these people are all corrupt. We forget all this stuff, including the police. Like we're getting into in this, right? Like they'll
Yeah.
all
And
make money for themselves, right?
that kind of ties into, I suppose, the next part of the story. So far, this may all seem quite unbelievable until you look into the background of the Fresno PD. Racial discrimination and corruption are two things that have cropped up multiple times. At the tail end of 2023, the PD and Fresno mayor were both sued by veteran cop Lieutenant Ruiz, accusing them of such crimes. Just a year before John's death, the deputy chief, Keith Foster, was involved in some crimes, also including drug trafficking. In recent years, multiple police officers in Fresno have been arrested and jailed for similar crimes, among other forms of corruption, all under the command of Police Chief Jerry Dyer. On the 9th of November 2004, Dyer suspended Jose Morales from the force for some supposed violation. Morales decided to confront Dyer at his home about the issue, which was probably not a good idea regardless. Morales had later been found dead in a field across the road from Dyer's house.
Just a
A driver,
coincidence.
yeah, this is wild. Like a driver had found the body face down beside his truck with an apparent self inflicted gunshot wound to the chest, and it was immediately ruled a suicide. Due to
What? You know
Morales,
how
yeah.
hard it is to shoot yourself in the chest and to die from that?
And I love how it's like, well, I guess it committed suicide. Anyway, let's just close the case, done.
It's like eventually when we die, I would like to talk about Kurt Cobain, but that idea of like he didn't, it was impossible. You know how hard it'd be to put a shotgun like
That's what I was going to say, especially with a fucking shotgun.
I know, and that he was the heroin in the system, right, was so much that it was like he wouldn't have been able to lift it. So it's crazy. This guy shot himself, even doing like this. Fairly odd. I'm like trying to point a gun, even if it's a handgun, to your chest is very weird, and it would probably, especially if it was a powerful gun, and had kick to it, it might snap
Yeah.
your wrist if you try to hold it like that.
Yep.
That's so weird, man.
Um. So yeah, it was ruled a suicide. Due to Morales' family feeling that Dyer was involved, they took him and the PD to court. Funny enough, their wait, here it is now. So funny enough,
Yeah,
their
yeah.
attorney missed most of the court dates and disappeared for 3 months, which means the case was dismissed.
Huh. Of course.
So they hired an attorney and he missed all the court dates and then he disappeared off the face of the earth for 3 months and then came back and was like, oh, what? After the case had been thrown out.
Because they probably threatened him.
I'd imagine so, yeah.
And that's the crazy thing is that if like this happens within politics, within the medical industry, that they're like, yeah, you got to push this or do this, or we're gonna come after your family. That's how dangerous a lot of the people are in this world that actually control things, and that's why no one will ever get through. Right? People were like commenting on one of my videos like, oh, you should. Someone put like the reptilian for prime minister. I'm like, a lot of people have told me to get into politics and to try to run and do something, but they would not let someone like me
No.
in. They would dig up all my stuff that I've said on the show. They would not
Mhm.
let me actually try to make a difference because realistically, everyone that's out there that's listening, everyone's bought and paid for. The cops, the politicians, and stuff like that. And a case like this proves to me that that is the case. And this is just one like small like the city, whatever, right? So it's fine because it made me think of the Fresno night crawlers. They're
Yeah,
they're involved with this. They murdered John Lennon. Those weird
yeah.
pants, like moving
So
pants.
the attorney goes missing, disappears for 3 months, and then the case was dismissed. There was many strange things to the case, such as the witness who called was anonymous, and the phone number that was used was turned off and never used again. So the person that reported finding the body
Weird.
was an anonymous person. The police didn't happen to ask, like, okay, what's your name? What's your information?
Yeah, yeah.
He just called as anonymous and went, hey, I found a guy who committed suicide by gunshot.
Oh, yeah.
And the phone number that was so the phone number was activated. The call was made reporting a body found, and then the number was never used again.
That's a cop for sure. Like,
That's so,
and to
like,
be, and that realistically, to be like, you would, if I found that guy, I would assume that somebody killed him, somebody whacked him, like a
yeah.
mafia type thing,
I
right?
don't, I don't think the first thing I would think if I went outside today and found a body in a field beside his car, I don't think I'd be like, oh, he clearly shot himself.
No note, no like motive. One of the first things that cops like need to do is find a motive for a crime, right? Of why it's being done. And if it's like, all
Another
right,
strange thing
there
about
it
it
is.
was the family filed, I don't know if it's like subpoenas or whatever, to try and get the way they can find like where the phone was pinged with the cell towers,
Yeah.
and they were never given the information. The phone company and stuff were like, no, we can't. Like, it's like fucked up.
It's crazy too. Like it just makes me think of like other cases that we'll eventually dive into, and there's a lot of true crime mysteries that we have not really covered on the show of like how they end up finding certain people, even like Chris Watts kind of thing, of something that happens, and then they can trace down where they were at the specific time, and all this stuff. And there's so many weird, mysterious cases. I have one about a family, the Jameson family, like disappeared out of nowhere, and it's just like, and how can we not figure out where these people are? You know?
Especially nowadays. Like, I mean, it's not, it's like things have advanced so much. So a little bit more about the Fresno police. From 2010 to 2019, there was 189 lawsuits against the Fresno PD, totaling around $18 million in claims. John began documenting everything he could and posting videos to his channel Lang Marine 1910, which while some of the videos could be passed off as nothing, there are some that seem more sinister. A minivan with a camera set up recording his house, the same vehicles pulling up outside his house over and over again on multiple occasions, people coming to his gate and like trying to like, I know it seemed like he had a dog, and it was like they were
Yeah.
trying to like kind of pacify the dog and like get the dog to be like, hey, I'm like familiar, and like they show up multiple times, the same person on like random days. And I'm like, that's really weird. Like, pull up in a car, get out, cross the street, go over to his house specifically, put your hand in over the gate to his dog and be like, hey. and then like not be seen again for 3 or 4 days, pull up to the street again, get out of the car, go over to the
That's so
gate, over
bizarre.
to the
That would
dog.
freak me out. It's like imagine like that you had people watching you like that. There's this one really friendly guy that like always likes to talk to me and the wife or whatever. And he's got kids and a wife and she's pretty quiet, but he's always like, "Hey, how's it going?" Da da da, like almost like he wants to be friends and just being a nice
Serial
guy.
killer.
And yeah, I know. And then I'm like, there's something about people that are like too nice and friendly and especially in this day and age where everyone is made this way where that's what it's weird. The buddy that I work with, when I asked him what's the weirdest thing about Canada compared to India, because he came from India, and he was like that you guys don't know your neighbors, and I'm like it's probably for a good reason. A lot of people are skeptical of each other and their motives and what they want, and I think that it would be good to have a more community based, and I think we've lost that. But nowadays, everyone's just so paranoid of like who people are and what they could be capable of, and that's the crazy thing about. And then there's a lot like this world has breeded like psychopaths, right? A lot of people are just crazy, you
Yep.
know. Look
Yep.
at what the month that we're in. If this will come out later, but yes, it's the month of the fucking mafia rainbow, and that cult aspect of stuff. It's just like there's people out there that are just have lost their minds, and this is such a weird thing. And this is all the video footage. It's just so weird. And it was a different time. When did this case come out? When did this case come out?
This case was. That's a good question.
Because like
2016, I think this happened. Well, it had been happening for years. He had been like involved in all that shit
look, another
for years.
propaganda. Phil, wow, well, that's crazy. So we're bringing up a video of some of his videos on his YouTube channel. It's just a movie about Fly Me to the Moon, where it says about the faking moon landing, I guess. Weird. Yo,
Yeah,
that
no,
would freak the fuck out of me.
very
That's so.
strange. He seemed to reckon that they pulled up right outside his house and like they only filmed outside his house and then pulled the door across and drive away.
So
Now, other
everybody
people
that's
were like,
listening, it's a guy in a van with like a pretty expensive camera, like a filming a movie type camera. Back when was this? Because like, which is 2015.
yeah, that was 2000.
Wow, that's not that long ago, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Look, and
been
then they
in
closed the door and
weird,
they're gone.
and the fact too of like that 9 years ago, look how many views it has, almost 500,000. It is. There's a lot of it. It's so weird, and the fact that we don't know this guy's name, like, and well, we John Lang, but dude, is that his real name? We don't know his face. You
Yeah,
know what
no,
I
we
mean?
don't. Yeah, we don't know for sure.
We don't know really, realistically. We know nothing about this guy, and what like is there any accounts of his neighbors and the people that actually
Yeah,
saw
so
him?
we'll get into a little bit of that now. Then,
So
so
weird.
um, there are videos on the channel of a silver truck. John stated belonged to the police department, and he would that his phone calls were being traced. He tracked back some of this stuff and he said that it had all been registered to the police. There's another video that shows a random 20-minute gap cut from the recording that he states he knew nothing about. In April 2015, he was invited over to his next door neighbor's house. After some time, he became uncomfortable and wanted to leave. He used the excuse that he couldn't find his wallet, but the wife of the couple told him that he couldn't leave yet. He bolted for the door and made it outside, but the husband blocked the gateway, so he jumped the fence and ran next door to his house, only to find his stuff inside had been tampered with: his front door lock, printer, and 2 computers. He felt like the neighbors were in on this, and he also stated in the video description that George Adam Ramirez was a convicted sex offender.
His neighbor.
Mm.
Weird. Well, and then is the idea of like, well, we have this on you. We'll put you back into jail if you don't go along with
Mm-hmm.
our, and this gang stalking activity. It's crazy. I was debating on doing an episode about that because it is funny how it can happen, and you're like you like use tactics to essentially make someone so paranoid and crazy. Like imagine if that was like a fake camera that the guys pulled up with, it's not a real camera. They weren't filming anything, but it's just to drive him crazy,
Here's something also kind of scary. So I done a bit of digging on this George Adam Ramirez dude. And he is in fact on the sex offenders list. And his name, age, weight, everything about him matches this guy's next door neighbor.
Yeah.
And since John died, they moved house immediately,
Of course.
which
What?
is really strange. Could this be because of possible involvement? Um, John had done some form of research and said that the man had allegedly entered his house illegally, went by a fake name of Eli Ramirez. He also claimed this man showed up at his work and had a German Shepherd with him, similar to the man seen in some of the CCTV videos. 2 weeks after his report to Internal Affairs, 3 cop cars pull up outside the house and 6 officers just proceed to hang out on the sidewalk. Is this a potential intimidation technique?
That's fucking weird.
That's it. It's really strange. And this is what I'm saying of like stop like this intimidation tactic. You're right of like don't do this anymore. Stop exposing our crimes. And for something as little as like it like realistically, this license plate scam of making money off of giving people tickets and stuff like that. That is a like it's a little thing considering, right, like the levels of corruption that goes, like the idea eventually when we talk, which maybe will come this summer, where we talk about Robert Picton, the pig farmer that killed 50 people even though he was mentally retarded and stuff, and there's connections to like the RCMP and stuff, and that's like huge. So just this simple thing of so crazy of him trying to expose the corruption of the police essentially making money off of scamming people, right? And that they will go out of their way to be like, no, he can't expose this. So then they start to intimidate him, and they've obviously like they have the intellectual level of they understand how you could manipulate the situation, right, to make him sound crazy, you know?
It's very weird because there is a lot of like, seems
That guy
very
looks like a
random
cop.
that all these people just happen to show up outside his house and like stare inside and like keep walking past and like showing up every couple of days. Very
Yeah,
strange. Like
that guy
it's
looks like a cop.
yeah, it's an awful lot of coincidences, right?
There's people you can definitely look like a cop, like 100%.
Like he just randomly pulled up there and he's just like walking up and down.
And
Like,
he was he in the driver's seat or the passenger? Who was was he in the passenger? Yeah, he was. Weird. No, and then he gets something weird.
so now he's like talking to somebody in there.
That's so weird.
And here
Who's that?
comes, I'm assuming this is John,
Wild.
and they're having some conversation. So, um,
Really weird.
to move forward then another bit,
Have you we're gonna have you showed his picture yet? Like we should show his picture of his Facebook. It's weird. It's like he's wearing an anonymous mask. It is crazy. It's like
Um,
2015. It's pretty wild. I thought it was earlier
so
than that.
he eventually posts a video on his YouTube and Facebook with the following caption. If this is fucking unsettling. If I turn up missing or dead tomorrow, remember this van. I think I seen, actually, let me just pull this van up before we for people who are watching the video aspect. For people who are not, we're just going to show a clip of, I think it's the last video I ever uploaded to his account.
Weird.
And what I'm
Such a
about to read
bizarre
in a
case.
second
This whole thing is so bizarre.
will kind of allow
Oh, weird.
for to explain about it. So, if I turn up missing or dead tomorrow, remember this van. I think I seen a couple of guys sneak out the side door into the building when it was parked in the carport this afternoon. I've been causing the city of Fresno a lot of problems recently, which I now regret. Sign on the door said guarantee carpet cleaning Fresno. So apparently this company isn't real, and the details of the plates on this van lead to absolutely nowhere. On January 15th, John posted on Corin Hogard's ABC 30 Action News Facebook page the following unsettling message. Corin, you want some news? Corrupt Fresno cops are going to try and kill me this weekend, possibly tonight. This is no joke. Please follow up on my story regardless of what happens or what version the cops and the Fresno Bee come up with. Please check out www.jodymurray.com and my YouTube site. Thank you.
It
So
is
that-
very strange, dude. And considering like what's that There's like Training Day is a good representation of
Hmm.
the cops that are corrupt. But there's that one with Keanu Reeves. Uh, I'm gonna bring it up right now, just to because it is interesting because this like, and it's a reflection of there is very corrupt people. There is all sorts of different people within, the government or so strange, or authoritarian roles. What is that one movie called? Street Kings. You ever
Hmm.
seen
Oh
that
yeah,
movie?
yeah,
Great
yeah, yeah,
movie
yeah.
because it's this idea that there are some good cops and then there are some bad cops, and they've kind of they weeded out. And if everybody's corrupt though, and everyone will take a paycheck for corruption or to keep quiet about certain things, then like really you don't really have anyone protecting you. You just have enforcement, not law enforcement, enforcement of the state. And it is so crazy because it there were definitely cops doing this to this guy. They're all, and you can like you can look like a cop, but no, you can. There's like ranks of certain people. Even that, this is California. There's a lot of Mexicans or whatever. Latino, whatever, Latina or whatever, police, and it's just like that guy definitely looked very sketchy. The guy smoking the cigarette,
Yeah, it's
or
just,
the
I don't know, a lot of coincidences.
or they can use actual criminals, right? People that they've let out that are on bail, or this guy has a sentence of a couple years. They give him a little less, and they're like, if you help us do this, we'll reduce your sentence or your probation or whatever it may be, and they use that so they can actually they're not involved, right?
Hmm.
But it
Yeah.
reminds you of like the weird van. It just reminds you like you remember Cheech and Chong, where the
Hmm.
cops are like watching that house and they're in that weird like sketchy van, and they're like that old school thing of having all the recording equipment inside of a van
Yeah,
so
it's
they
like
can
a
record.
stakeout.
Yes, a stakeout. Yeah, yeah, and to tap the phones, and then I couldn't imagine the paranoia that this guy was going through of everywhere he went, everything he said, thought, of just in how he says it's so scary that he's like, I regret doing this.
Yeah, and
I
then
made a
uh,
mistake.
directly after that, he
Yeah.
posted on his own page asking if anyone wanted to stay at his house that night, but they must be a legal gun owner, as the bad guys may come and try and get inside. Unsettling, really
That's
unsettling.
so crazy.
So, several days later, on Wednesday, January 20th, 2016, neighbors saw smoke coming from John's house. The fire brigade were on another call a few doors away, and when they broke in, discovered that all the entry points were completely blocked from the inside. They found John unresponsive and bleeding heavily and performed CPR all the way to the hospital. The initial investigators felt that someone had set the fire at John's house, and they also found some unusual things inside the home. The house was very messy and things were thrown all over the place. There was also a mattress with bloodstains on it. It's also noted that the camera system stopped recording before the fire department showed up to the scene, as well as the inside camera stopped working the day before he died.
Of course.
Upon reviewing the CCTV from inside, police say, now again, take this with a grain of salt. Police say that John was said to be sitting on the couch with a knife and he was shown waving it to the camera. He leaves the room and returns and then turns off the camera. However, this footage was never released anywhere to prove what the police were saying. The investigators ruled that his death was 100% a suicide. The autopsy report states that he had 3 major stab wounds into
In
his
the
chest
back,
area.
right?
After the, after this, it was found that the police had brought 2 knives from the house to test if they were using the death. The black T-shirt that he was wearing when he was found had no tears or holes in it either. He
Wow.
also
Wasn't
had
he stabbed in the
several,
back?
yeah, there was like several less like severe ones in his back. Now they were saying that like, oh, he could have like technically he could have went like this.
That is the stupidest shit I've ever heard, man.
I know, yeah.
That these cops, it's crazy because there's probably no justice for this guy. Whoever perpetrated this crime of killing this guy will probably rot in some sort of hell. Whatever exists beyond this, because that's crazy that they're openly corrupt. And oh yeah, and I heard, didn't the coroner say that he was stabbed in the back, and then he like said, oh no, never mind, that's
Yeah.
not true.
So then right, and after all of this, They determined that his death wasn't from anything like that. It was from smoke inhalation. There were
Oh
many claims
fuck.
that John also had mental health issues or a drug problem, but the toxicology reports showed that there was nothing in his system at all. As for reports of schizophrenia, people who suffer with this have a smaller temporal lobe. The autopsy report showed nothing of the sort with John.
It's so crazy because like you would, as a, especially to some guy that's running a funeral parlor, you know, or whatever. You're just or you do autopsies. Everyone can be paid out, right? But you would, if you're just a normal guy, you'd probably feel some sort of guilt, and you know, just be like, we're gonna pay you off to do this or that. And it's such a bizarre story because that's like so, and they definitely burnt down his house, and so that obviously the house was lit on fire. The fire department got the call. They ran out, and who knows whatever his neighbors saw. It was is interesting, and then he's got stab wounds, and it's just
Very weird way, like, because there's a lot of people online who were like, okay, we need to look at this, like, realistically. Let's just say for a second, let's play devil's advocate. The
that
guy
he
is a
did do
complete,
it.
yeah, the guy is a complete paranoid freak and whatever, a schizophrenic, even though it's been proven through the autopsy that he couldn't have been a schizophrenic. Um, it would be a very weird way. Like there's so many people we've heard of committing suicide and killing themselves and whatever. You always have like the conventional, like you're going to hang yourself, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. But to start stabbing yourself in the back, then stab yourself 3 times in the chest, and then light your house on fire and lie down in it.
I know. What is this like, Stu and Billy trying to
Yeah,
like?
it's a very weird, like, think about how elaborate that plan is. It's like, you know what? I think I'm going to kill myself. I think I'm going to stab myself a lot of times, and then I'm going to set the house on fire and just burn to death.
And the fact that his shirt that he was wearing
Doesn't have
when
any
they
holes in it.
found the body, all of this reeks corruption, and this definitely was the cops or they paid somebody to do this to this guy, and they burnt down. It's one of the weirdest, most suspicious.
Mm.
Case of a true crime case that I've heard in a long time. When you brought it up and I started looking into it, it is kind of fascinating because they definitely were involved in this over a license plate scam that he was exposing. And I guess because they would have been watching his YouTube channel, they would probably
Yeah.
know where the cameras are, especially on the outside of the house at least. And that's why they were probably pulling up in those vans, and because they could be, that was a pretty that's a pretty expensive camera for that time. That's like a
Yeah,
film
he thought it
camera.
was like some sort of thermal thing, but like
Yeah,
lots of
yeah.
people were saying, no, no, I don't think it was that, but I definitely do think it was still them
Yeah.
taking
And
footage of the area and the house and the
the
angles and
area, the
stuff.
house, where they could probably zoom in and try to find where they think the camera was from seeing the
Hmm.
footage of the kind of CTV camera footage. It's such a bizarre case, man. It's so weird,
Yeah,
and
it
it's
is.
like eerie, like
And
it's
like,
creepy.
think about it, right? If you stabbed yourself like badly 3 times in the chest, right?
You wouldn't be able to light the house on fire.
But also, like, what would possess you to go, you know what, I gotta change my shirt
Yeah,
actually. I think I gotta change my shirt right now while I'm bleeding to death. Like,
impossible.
it doesn't make any sense. Like, none of that makes any, I don't think I've ever heard of a story where somebody gets stabbed or stabs themselves and goes, you know what, I need to change clothes.
I need to do this, or even be able to walk to
Because
your.
don't they say a lot of times as well when you do something like that, it's like when people go to hang themselves and like the minute you do it, your brain kicks into that like instant regret of being like, well, this was a bad idea. It's like people jumping off a bridge
Yeah, yeah.
and like before they even hit the bottom, they're like, oh shit.
Yeah, and then especially if they survive, which has happened. Your brain would kick in for fight or flight mode
Mm.
of trying to survive. That is what your brain does, and that's it is crazy because that's his fear and paranoia was probably justified because if you don't have good instincts, like the idea of what's happening in the world today and the stuff that is happening to people and in the countries all over the world, if you don't have an instinct to be like something weird is going on,
Hmm.
we're obviously being tormented and killed and all sorts of shit. You must be so brainwashed to not have that natural instinct of like something is wrong here. I've had that instinct since I was a young kid, like 11, 10, of being like, there's something very weird and strange about this reality that we exist in, and how it's being manipulated. And I felt weird about this planet for a long time. So this guy starts exposing stuff, and then he was like, then he realizes he's already gone too deep, right? That it's too late, right? So that's why he starts like filming everything and showing the proof that like a lot of weird people are pulling up to my house. And it would be crazy if it was all in his head. If he's just like, but the
Yeah.
thing is, the evidence doesn't line up, where there is no carpet cleaning company with the same name. The license plates don't add up. So if all of that did, then you could be like, okay, he was crazy and really paranoid, and he heard voices or whatever it might be. But no, he stumbled upon a real corruption, tried to expose it within the police department, and then he got murdered. And it does, like, the reality is, like, truth is stranger than fiction, right? And you see this, like, that's why I brought up the movie like Street Kings, or some of those movies. There's a bunch of them. That one with Jake Gyllenhaal is pretty good, of showing that cops can be very corrupt. It's a very intense job, and some of the stuff that they see breaks you. Like
Hmm.
my uncle, who was a lieutenant in Toronto, for the police department. He's not a good person, to say the least. Pretty crazy. And I remember being, when I was a kid, I used to listen to CT Talk 1010, which is like a Toronto news station. And I heard his name on the radio, because he was involved with harassment, of his wife, his ex-wife's friend, and stuff like that he left her for. That to me alone showed, like, all right, even the low level people,
Yeah.
like lieutenant, he was doing it for 20 years or whatever. But when I think it was one of his first days on the job as like a rookie, he went to like some sort of crack house, and there was like a dead baby, and that could fuck you up for life. He hated me. I was very obviously outspoken, and didn't like police, and looked like, and I was in my own right a degenerate back then when it came to who I was. So, but he was always an asshole, and filled with so much like hatred and stuff like that, and like in who he was. And that probably alone, one thing fucked him up. So imagine what progressed throughout his career, of the things that he saw and had to endure being a cop in Toronto. So, and
Mm.
and then it's like, well, I need to make money for myself to survive or whatever. And they their own instincts kick in, because
Yeah.
if
Like, no,
and
go
it's
ahead.
crazy. Well, I was just saying, like, this idea of like movies like Street King, where it's like it involves like 5 people, okay, and then they have to keep it quiet, so they have to try to infiltrate these other people and get them to go along with their stuff, and then it becomes this like ripple effect of like they have to keep the corruption quiet. Look, like the Canadian government, man, being treasonous. They're not giving out any of the names of the people that are literally treasonous, selling us out of China and Israel and India. That's crazy. So now it becomes this ripple effect where like they have to like shut everyone down.
There's like, I had written out a bit of a recap, I suppose, before we like bookend
Yeah,
the episode. So uh
such
the
crazy
first
shit.
report of his death states that he had deep lacerations and stab wounds to his back, but ultimately died of smoke inhalation. It wasn't until after the case blew up on YouTube, all this conspiracy and corrupt shit, it even had a moment on the news. They then did a follow up statement saying, "Oh, he was crazy. All this info about him barricading, all this info about him being crazy and killing himself." There was not one evidence photo or anything released by the police. Everything from the Fresno Police Department seems to be just words. No one has any actual proof or any physical proof besides Lang filming all that weird shit on the CCTV. Um,
Bring up the
another
image
thing,
that you had when we started, like when we were gonna start this. I'm just showing
uh,
people like kind of his Facebook page.
what was it I had?
It was like his Facebook page, and the weird the cover for the thumbnail that you had up.
So,
Yeah, that. Is
this
that
one?
weird? Everybody watching, like, you can find this stuff, but he had like this weird anonymous photo too, where it was like it could have been his face, and it's like overlain with like an anonymous mask.
Mm-hmm.
It's so crazy. I just want to read it off what he says. Put it back up. It's
Oh,
so
sorry.
this was his Facebook page to Cornyn Hoggard, the
Hmm.
ABC 30 Action News. Cornyn, you want some news? Corrupt Fresno cops are trying to kill me this weekend, possibly tonight. This is no joke. Please follow up on my story, regardless of what happens or the version that the cops and the Fresno B come up with. Please check out. And you stated this, but it is weird. He was trying to really expose this, and it's interesting. He's using Facebook to try to do it. You know,
Yeah, apparently,
strange
like he
case.
posted a lot of shit on Facebook as well as YouTube. Um, Another thing I
There's a way
noticed
to
as
get
well is
stuff
like
out.
people don't come to your house at 2 a.m. over and
No.
over again and like try to familiarize themselves with like your neighbor's dog and snoop around in your yard.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing I noticed, same people but different companies. So I was reading all the captions in the videos he posted, and he states in a comment on one of his videos that the jogger that's seen in one of the videos going up and down past his house constantly is also the same guy as the cleaner.
Of course, right? So
And they look like the same person.
if you start noticing all this stuff, of course, man, this guy's going to drive himself in nuts. And realistically, it's such a the what makes this so bizarre is that he had no like we don't know who his family was,
No.
who he was personally talking to and hanging out with, or any of that stuff. And that's why maybe they thought they had the ability to be able to do this and get away with it is because they knew he was like a kind of hermit guy, sheltered, maybe had his, his parents are dead now and there's not much, he doesn't know where his family is, or there's people like that, right, that have no connection to a lot of their family, and just there's people like that out there, which is sad. It's just them on their own. And if that's weird to me, though, that there's nobody that he was trying to alert to what was happening in his own personal life, where they could come out and be like, "This is set up. He was murdered. What is happening?"
It's there's another thing I noticed as well with the cleaning van video. So they pull up in that cleaning van and they get out. And that dude that we see, he
Yeah.
drops off a flyer at John's neighbor's house, right? He takes one flyer out and
Hmm.
puts it like on the gate of John's neighbors, and then leans over the fence and he's like going back and forth between that and the door of the van, smoking a cigarette, just staring at John's house constantly, and then
Yeah.
gets back in the van and drives away. Now, I'm sorry, right? I don't have like my own landscaping business or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure like if I was going out canvassing with flyers, I wouldn't pull into a neighborhood, put one flyer on one house, smoke a cigarette, and then drive away.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
There's
what
something.
would what's the point in that?
There's something deeply strange about this case, and almost like eerie and like you said, unsettling. There's no answers. There's no answers. There's no justice. There's no
Mhm.
anything, and that's why it's perplexing that we don't really know anything about this guy. And his family is like that's the always thing that's gonna stick out to me. Of like we don't even know what this guy looks like. Is
I
the
know, yeah.
craziest shit too, man. Such a bizarre case, and I think it was pretty cool that we were able to, that you wanted to
One
cover
last thing
this.
actually before I was just
Yeah, yeah,
reading here. So the police said that the stab wounds were superficial. However, the actual coroner's article stated that all three stab wounds were extremely deep and one had actually cut a quarter inch into his heart. Also, does anybody care to explain the completely fake carpet cleaning company van spotted stopping outside his neighbor's house, glancing at his house? 10 police officers standing outside his house chatting across the street
yeah. Oh,
multiple
that was
times.
weird. Yeah,
Yeah. The police department have always refused to release any documents about the case. Why was there zero rips in his clothes despite being stabbed, and zero soot or any sort of ash on his body or any clothing? Before this
weird.
case, the Fresno Police Department was already known to be the most corrupt department in the United States, and he most likely discovered something he shouldn't have relating to heavy drug trafficking rumors that surround the department for years. So,
Eh,
what does everybody think then? Is this delusions and paranoia, or someone who was onto something and was taken care of before he
Yeah,
got too close?
I would like anyone that's watching this on YouTube or Rumble, or even X or whatever, leave comments of what you think was happening. because it is really bizarre. This is a really bizarre case, and the fact that like there's no justice. They got away with it. The cops are in Fresno are probably still corrupt amongst all of the cops. So
So there's something funny about that. This is the
they didn't
last thing
clean
I had.
house, man. They're still in there. It's like the people. It's just so
Oh,
the people that forced you into lockdowns, right? Just preference this or whatever. And your grandma dies. My aunt died. I wasn't able to see her. Because of the measures that were taken in place, and some like they're still in charge. All these people that forced you to like into medical coercion to make you take a bioweapon and all the stuff that's happened, they're still in charge. And nobody's doing anything about it. And it's just like it's the same case with this. The
yeah.
cops and this corruption is still at large. There are still criminals running the country. There is authoritarian state police officers that are just obedient dogs to the corrupt system that keeps us all enslaved through like taxes and everything else. And they're all still in charge, man. There's nothing changed. There's like a meme where it's like, oh, the medical or the government essentially forced you into medical rape, and then you were like, oh well, it was 3 years ago. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah. That's pretty
Like
much
you
what happens.
fucking bizarre,
That's
man.
what
People
happens.
just like, oh, let's just put more dirt over it. It's a picture of a guy shoveling all the corruption, all the things that have happened. There's more and more dirt, and it's like just forget about this, forget about it. Never forget.
I definitely want everybody who's gotten to the end of this episode to let us know like what your stance, I suppose, is on the case now after listening to this.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody can deny like the strange and unsettling
Yeah.
situation surrounding this. Also, the last thing that I wanted to say was so we talked about Jerry Dyer earlier, the
Yeah.
lieutenant, sergeant, whatever he was, that
He
had that
mysteriously died.
disagreement with a guy, and then the guy shows up dead across the street, but it has nothing to do with him, and it was ruled a suicide.
Oh yeah, yeah. So he has the argument with the guy, and then
He's like the police chief or whatever he is, and
and then somebody dies that he's arguing with,
no,
right?
yeah, so yeah, he's the police chief or whatever, and he suspends one of the police officers
Oh
for
yeah,
like
yeah.
misconduct, but doesn't like elaborate on what it is. And then that officer was like, fuck this. Probably not the best way to approach it, but he shows up at his house, like, and he's like, what the fuck is, why have I been suspended? Like, there's what's going on?
So weird.
And then that night, that officer shows up dead across the
Yeah.
street from the sergeant's house. And like, there's no investigation. They were like, nothing was brought up about the fact that they had like basically a physical altercation earlier that night. It was just like, oh no, he must have just left your house after the altercation and killed himself.
Yeah.
So that guy now, Jerry Dyer, since 2021, he has been elected mayor of Fresno and now
Oh,
controls the
isn't
whole
that
city.
weird? Isn't that bizarre?
Yep. And now he controls the entire city of Fresno.
No shit. And that's all part of the corruption, man. If you live
So
in
that's really cool.
Fresno, you should probably try to look into this a little more. And the fact that the
If you live in
majority,
Fresno, you probably should try and leave.
yeah, the majority of people that just don't care and just like whatever, and that like,
It's that
ex-
thing like of like if it's not me, like if somebody's being physically assaulted in the street, it's like, well, I think I'll just like pass by because it's not, at least it's not me.
the bystander effect. That
Yeah.
that video of that dad being stabbed up by that
That's stuck in my
I
mind.
know forever. For that foreigner in Vancouver, a dad was. If you don't know, the dad was stabbed in front of his daughter and his wife for telling this guy not to vape in his daughter's face. It is a very disturbing video, and it just show people are just standing there watching, doing nothing. I couldn't have
Wild.
done that. I would have fucking knocked that guy out. I would have it's a knife. I will just kick it out of your hand. I'll do whatever I can. I'll use like somehow I'll figure it out. And people are like, well, you say that, but if it actually happened, no, I'm pretty sure that my brain could not withstand watching that. I would have to
Like
do
I
something.
get it, like it's scary and it's not a situation I think anybody wants to be in. But like, goddamn, like surely to God, with the couple of men that were around, like you could have maybe tried to like band together and be like, hey, we probably should stop this guy
The
from
guy
dying.
just filming it, like it's so crazy, man. I'm like, man,
There's
how
one
did
guy there though, just sitting, like he's
I know
literally
he's
like
sitting there.
he's like what, like 2 or 3 feet away.
And it's crazy the amount of blood that's coming out of the guy and how he just
Scary.
it's one of the I've seen a lot of crazy stuff in my life, and seeing that was just it irked my soul. of like seeing him he slowly like starts
Yep.
leaning over, goes down on a knee, and then just falls over and he's dead. And that's the perils and reality of the world that we exist in, where nobody's doing anything. And I want to add, like, if people don't see how there is evil has taken over this world, I don't know how else to prove this to you, but we're being controlled and run ran. We're like, the evil runs the world. You know, it's quite
Yep.
obvious, man. There are so many. There is the good, the evil outweighs the good in a lot of ways, especially recently in the last couple of years. And for all the religious people, right? I'm sure that they believe, like, yeah, Satan has taken over our reality, and it sure fucking seems like it, that there's some sort of
Hmm.
evil, malevolent force that has taken hold of our society, our world, and the fact that cops can just continue like this can continue to get away with it. There was no repercussions. There was no justice. They murdered a man for trying to expose how corrupt they were and what they were involved in. And so it's like the same thing. Like, Julian Assange just got let out of prison, and he
Yeah.
must have made a deal because I'm sure that he's not allowed to say anything, do anything, sue them in any way. They're probably like, shut up, go somewhere and just live the rest of your life. Because if you and he should be. He's a hero, in my opinion, of what he was trying to expose and how he spent a decade in prison. But you know that I'm sure that the it goes so deep. I had a guy send me new WikiLeaks stuff that has came up recently. It's all these files, and I've saved it and I sent it to myself. And there's some stuff in there that we could uncover, but it's pretty wild. I was just clicking
Mm.
through some of the stuff, and it's just essentially a lot of corruption that has been going on in our world, and it's quite disturbing. And it's
Yeah,
crazy
and
that
like a case like this, I think it's just like, it's a drop in the ocean. But I definitely would like to hear what everybody listening thinks of this
yeah,
case, like where you sit, like which side of the fence do you sit on, and why more so, rather than
yeah.
just saying like, well, I don't believe it or I do believe it. Let us know why you
Check
think that.
this out.
Um,
So just bring this up on screen to end this on. This is the WikiLeaks thing that I was sent. Look at all this
oh
shit.
yeah, it's wild.
And this is all like Afghanistan off property list. There's like really weird stuff. There's to go Afghanistan. This stuff about the war. Essentially, there's a couple things about the war, blood and honor database. There's a lot of weird things. Korea. So it's essentially shedding light on some of the corruption that is going on. A lot of them is like PDFs. Some of it is like images. And I have not look at the FBI pedophile symbols and just like click this. Look, pretty crazy. Like, and this whole I haven't even dived into some of the stuff that this is showing. But guy sent me this, and I'm like, well, that's crazy. Look how long this is.
That's wild.
Yeah, and I'm like, holy fuck, I don't know. Like, I saved it, and I have so, if I'm wind up dead.
This is why.
This is why, because somebody sent me does all this shit. U.S. Army. So there's a lot of people that are trying to expose the corruption, and like I said, it is very strange that it seems like we definitely live in a world where evil has it's taken over. In my
Hmm.
opinion, it's quite clear, right? Such a
Yeah,
wild
we're
case.
yeah, it's a strange one, and like people have covered it, but like nobody's really, I think, outside of like like a 10-minute video or whatever, no one's really talked too much about it.
Yeah, when
So I
you
thought it was
told
an
me, but
interesting case.
I had heard nothing about this before you told me.
Yeah, it was one of those obscure ones I came across years ago, and it always kind of, I don't know, it just stuck in my mind. I was like, that's fucking such a bizarre like thing to happen. I can't imagine and like it's so easy nowadays to discredit somebody by going like, oh, he was like suffering with mental illness, he was fucking schizophrenic. Like,
Yeah,
I'm sure, right, if something like this happened to me, let's say, I'm sure that it would be really easy to pull up my medical files and go, oh, this dude like was at the doctor before, like said he was depressed and shit. So he's
yeah,
obviously just like psycho. So he just like made up all this stuff because he's a lunatic. Or, oh, look, these dudes done like podcasts online before about conspiracies and horror movies
yeah,
and all. They're obviously like sick in the head. So it's obviously all lies. And then that's
yeah.
it. That's all you've got to do. End story. That's all
I
the
know
proof.
it's true. It's true, and that's all you gotta do is convince people.
Hmm.
And there has definitely been if you look at our society and the way people think and view things, they've been socially conditioned in so many ways. And this is something I brought up. I attempted to do the first episode of Tomcast, where I want to do a political show where I more or less rant and get out some of my thoughts about the world that we exist in. And who knows, I put it on our own RSS feed. We might have some guests or stuff like that to talk about politics. And it's just a thing that I started doing of trying to figure out if I actually want to do this or I have the ability to actually entertain people
Mhm.
For an hour or two with my own thoughts. And I was just talking about the amount of people that just don't know even their own history and want to deny their national identity or their identity in general of who they are. And that's like, no, we're just like, and how bad it's getting within certain countries of like, like you wave around a passport and all of a sudden you're Canadian or you're Irish. And it's like, it just doesn't, it's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's fucking wild.
We live in a dark and corrupt world, but I thought this was interesting,
Mhm.
and there is much more to come on this show when it comes to we're going to start diving back into true crime in a big way with some very big deep dives. There's a bunch of serial killers that I've always wanted to cover that will come into the folds of the network and stuff soon, but we appreciate everyone that actually like watches. I never know how to end these things ever, but
I know, yeah.
I appreciate everyone that watches and listens. And like I said, give us 5-star rating reviews, especially on Apple Podcast and Spotify. And it helps more than you realize. Even just telling people about the show or sharing an episode as a story on Instagram or whatever. If you're listening to it, it helps more than you realize. And it helps us get out there and maybe be able to live off this one day where we can record even daily or, a couple times a week and make more content. And there's so many things that are strange in this world and to cover and to get into. So I appreciate everybody that listens.
Yeah, what Tom said.
Yes. Okay. That was really weird. All right. I'm going to go. I need to recuperate somehow before this movie. I'm just going to get absolutely obliterated.